Hello and welcome to the CrushCast. I'm Jesse Morrison alongside Bill McConnell, and today we are joined by Zach Betkowski, the first intern in the history of the Cortland Crush, who has made his way to the Lehigh Valley Ironpigs as their senior manager of corporate partnerships. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing great. So welcome to everybody, and hello, Zach.
Yep, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Zach, I just wanted to start off with you. What were the early days of the Cortland Crush like in your first year of interning there?
Yeah, it was a lot of, and I have to give credit to, the upper management, the board of directors, Bill certainly, where because there was really no model to go off of in the area, they kind of gave all of the interns free rein to just do whatever they wanted within reason, of course. So, I remember my first day ever on my internship, there was about 4 of us that sat in a little conference room on the campus of SUNY Cortland, and our first task was to come up with a kids club. We tried to just brainstorm different names, and if we wanted to have it be a paid club or a free club. And I had never, as a college student, had never had an experience like that before, and never really had an internship to kind of gain that experience. So it was a lot of learning on the fly. But again, credit to the management team for just kind of saying, hey, intern group, take the reins and really make this team and organization whatever you want it to be. Again, within reason, of course. But there was a lot of creative freedom, and I've always appreciated that. Even kind of moving on to the different teams I've worked for now over the last few years as well.
And I've always, in my time, kind of thought that those internships that allow that creative freedom, I've had some that don't, some that do. The ones that have allowed that creative freedom is really where I've grown. How important is getting that creative freedom, do you think, to just like growing your career and growing you as a worker and employee of a team?
I would say it's everything. I think for me, one of the most common questions I'll get is, oh, don't you want to work for the Yankees or the Phillies? And, certainly, if you asked me that question 8 years ago, I would have said, absolutely, I want to be the next Theo Epstein. But I've since come to realize that minor league baseball, an independent league and summer collegiate, are not as much by the book as Major League Baseball is. So we have so much creative freedom that we can pull off a Star Wars night, and we can pull off a tribute to the movie Forrest Gump at the minor league level. Whereas at the major league level, the goal is more to, see talent come through and win games. At the minor league level, our team could theoretically go 0-140, and we could still have our greatest attendance we've ever had because we had awesome giveaways and fun promotions for everybody.
Well, I will tell you this, going back to your question, when Zach first came on board as the first intern ever, first GM ever, he came on and had that mission walk from day one. He knew what he wanted to do, and I could always tell the wheels are turning, going, okay, what's next? Be ahead. Come to the ballpark. Here comes Zach, the first game we ever had. And the standard front office wardrobe. He had the tie, the shirt on or whatever, hustling around the ballpark at Beaudry Park in Cortland. And what a magnificent job that you did. And when you start thinking about, you have to give people some reins out there. And what do we always say, Zach? We won't let you hang yourself. But when the noose gets a little tighter, then we'll kind of step in and help. And you did that. Plus, you led a team of other interns and young staff. So magnificent job in the first season ever for the Crush behind the scenes. You guys did much better than our baseball record ever was that year.
Yeah, I think it was funny. I was so invested not only in the internship and then eventually becoming a job, that paid, and it was investing too in the players. And I think one of the things I've always appreciated about the Crush organization is that just as important as it was to develop talent on the field, it was equally as important to develop talent in the front office. So, I think that, I saw Jake Kinney on, last week, and hopefully we see him up in Lehigh Valley at some point. But it's just kind of a testament to show that, we have these young pros both on the field and off the field that are having success in the industry, whether it be at the minor league level or the independent level, or even if it's not in sports. We consider ourselves as much as an entertainment business as we do a sports franchise. So even if they're working in entertainment in general, I think there's a lot of lessons that could be taken from that initial season at the Cortland Crush.
See, Jesse, what you're missing this summer by not coming to New York is that feeling and experience. So, next year, if it's in the cards, you'll see it here, and we can go see Zach. What, Zach from Cortland? You're about 2.5 hours away, 3 hours.
Yeah, from where I'm at now, yeah.
Hey, I'd love that. Hey, I'd love that. I love checking out, new minor league baseball stadiums nearly as much as I like going to new major league baseball parks, because there's just something about minor league baseball that's special, like major league baseball isn't a little bit, because I'm from a town where all we had was minor league baseball, and I lived for those games during the summer just because it was really the only sport. We had some arena football teams and hockey teams and stuff that would come through and fail. But the minor league baseball team was always there, stuck around, popular. People went to games. So yeah, I love checking out other minor league cities. But Zach, how impressed are you with the growth of the Crush and how the success on the field has been over these past 7 years since you've been there?
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome to watch, and I've caught a few games on the radio, and I certainly follow on social media. I do miss it, and I think if I remember back to maybe 2015, I was supposed to make a trip up for a game, and unfortunately had a scheduling conflict. But I do really want to come back up and catch a game when things kind of get back up to normalcy, and just kind of see how it's grown, both fan wise, entertainment wise, and I know you guys have the facility on campus that you've been able to play at too, in addition to Beaudry Park. So.
And that's actually in the background right now. This is the field, Gutches Park right now, which is our home field, the only field we use now. So, but I have a question. What the heck is an Iron Pig? Tell me.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So the Lehigh Valley, and specifically the city of Bethlehem, we're in Allentown, worth noting, but is very well known for its steel industry and iron. So there's actually in one of our elevator lobbies, there's a big slab of pig iron, which is like a very common form of steel or iron that was used in the steel industry back in the day. So the name kind of resonates, just kind of a historic throwback to the Lehigh Valley and what it's previously known for. And we certainly took our own fun interpretation on it. We have two mascots, Ferris and Fifi, who are basically just gray pigs with some iron bolted onto various parts of their body. But they're lovable, fluffy characters that fans will come to games to see. And much like we look at other teams in the industry, they have all these wacky, crazy names. People, when we first announced the name, albeit I wasn't with the team, but you naturally get people that are like, Iron Pigs. Why would you name the team Iron Pigs? It's such a silly name. That's not a professional team like the Phillies or the Yankees. And then it kind of grows on people. And then from a merchandise standpoint, all of a sudden you see a slab of bacon that's being worn in Tokyo or Florida or wherever it may be across the world. So it's kind of cool to see.
I love those minor league baseball names. So I'm going to just jump into this question. So Bill, I want your opinion, and Zach, I want your opinion. So outside of the Iron Pigs, because I believe we did on my campus radio show last year, we did a whole March Madness of minor league baseball names. We did all 64 teams, seeded them, everything. I believe the Iron Pigs were at least a 1 or 2 seed. So they were up there.
So.
But outside of the Iron Pigs, what are y'all's favorite minor league baseball team name?
Well, you can look in the region right here. I love the Rumble Ponies. Meaning, when the owner first came out with that 4 or 5 years ago, when they changed, everybody looked at him and go, "What?" and the people on their staff are actually former Crush interns, Lauren Williams. And the Rumble Ponies, I loved it. But do you know where Rumble Ponies came from?
I do not know.
Think back in the day, Binghamton, New York was the builder of the merry-go-rounds, the Rumble Ponies, up on the merry-go-round. So it's stuck there. So Zach, what's yours?
Yeah, Rumble Ponies is a good one. I'll quickly note, when they were doing that name the team competition, I was a fan of Team Stud Muffins. I thought that was a great name. And I think they've since done a tribute night, like, what if we were the Stud Muffins? Other than the Ironpigs, of course, which is near and dear to my heart, I used to work for a team out in Vermont called the Lake Monsters. Always loved that logo and that name. They used to be the Vermont Expos and then rebranded to become the Lake Monsters. The Hartford Yard Goats is another great one. They're a really successful team at the AA level. And then even a new team at the AA level is the Rocket City Trash Pandas. They have a great logo and a really unique name. And I always laugh, especially being from a sales role, you're making those sales calls to a cold call to a business like, hey, I'm Zach calling with the Trash Pandas. It makes you stop and pause for a second, like, what did you just say? So it always kind of makes me laugh when you hear these wacky names.
I think
go ahead, Jesse.
I think mine is probably the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp.
Love it. I love them.
And they do great down there. The AA of the Marlins, they sometimes actually get more attendance than the actual Marlins. So I very much like that name. They changed it from Suns a few years back, and I think it's definitely helped them as far as marketing, promotions, whatever.
Well, I've got another one for you that I just love, and now the Jumbo Fish, we love them too because we've talked to them earlier this year. They have a phenomenal philosophy on what they try in the ballpark. Their philosophy is, why not? And then the other one, the Coastal Plains Summer Collegiate League, is Savannah Bananas. I love it. And the people who run and own that are formerly from upstate New York, the wife of the group there. And they are very, very creative on good family fun, but good nights at the ballpark, and very creative. So when you have a team with banana uniforms, the yellow, and looks at it. And then last year for their opening video for the season, they did a great video on the song last year, the horse song. I can't think what it is right now.
Old Town Road.
What was it?
Old Town Road. I saw that video.
Yes. It was awesome with the manager and the players with horses in it. But Savannah Bananas love them, and Jacksonville, you look at it. So when you look at them, Zach, you just said it a minute ago, it might not be baseball, but promotion nights. They have some great promotions. What's your favorite promotion night at the Ironpigs?
That's a good question. We've had so many unique ones, and there were so many we had planned for this year that I was really excited for that I hope will carry over into 2021. I think for us, I'll kind of speak to the most popular ones. Star Wars and Harry Potter have been two that just will have fans come out in droves, because what we're able to do oftentimes is have costume characters at the ballpark. Oftentimes it'll be in conjunction with a fireworks night, so that means that the show will kind of be themed to the music from the movies or the books or whatever. And there's various on-field contests that we can do that involve kids, involve families. So those are always great to see, especially when you have a giveaway associated with those nights, and you go out to the front gates an hour before gates are supposed to open, and you see a line or multiple lines, many people deep waiting for a cap or a jersey. Those are always my favorites, that we've seen. And we've certainly done our fair share of unique ones over the years too, that are a little bit more quirky, and not necessarily from, trying to move the needle from a ticket sale standpoint, but just to kind of get our name out from a PR standpoint. So, across the board, I think it's rewarding to be part of an organization that, recently is coming off winning the Larry McPhail Award, which is like the top promotional award that minor league baseball presents each year. So it's rewarding to be part of that team and have your ideas implemented and not have to worry about, being shut down or, sometimes you're going to miss and sometimes you're going to strike out. But, a lot of times we're of the yes and mentality, not the but mentality. So we try to make an idea work whenever we hear one.
It's a great mentality to have. I always line up for bobblehead night. You can see this is Mookie Betts and Andrew Benintendi as Miami Vice characters.
Nice.
That was a bobblehead a couple years back at my minor league team, because they both played for my minor league team, and the line was long for that game, and it was very much rain delayed, but people showed up for it.
I wish I was at my office to show you. I have a whole collection of bobbleheads sitting on my desk, but I came up with an idea last year to do if you've ever seen the movie Major League, which I'm sure
Yep.
Bill, you have.
Yep.
The Jabu bobblehead, we had a pitcher named Pedro Beato, who's like all-time saves leader with the Ironpigs, and the character in the movie is Pedro Serrano. So we did a Pedro Beato Jabu bobblehead, and he's got this wacky, crazy Jabu hair, and we did that in conjunction with a Major League night. And I'll try to find a picture and send it to you. Maybe you can flash it on the screen as an edit, but it was a really cool bobblehead I'm pretty proud of.
That's
So
awesome.
let me ask you this quick question, trivia. Pedro Serrano, the actor, what roles does he play on TV right now you see every day in advertisements?
Oh, I know.
Is he the Old Spice guy?
No, not Old Spice. Allstate.
Oh,
Allstate. Oh, that's that guy?
Yes. If you did,
man.
you have to go back and look at that character. I can't think the character's name. Great guy, great voice, but he was Pedro Serrano in the movie.
Interesting. I mean, now you just think of him so associated with Allstate and that voice and everything. I love their commercials.
And the chicken.
So
What's the worst idea that you'll never do again?
great question.
Yeah, it's tough. There was an idea that we had implemented. It was a special event. It wasn't a baseball event. It was a non-game day event. It was we did a pet video festival. And I think in concept, it has legs. And I think, maybe I wouldn't say we would never revisit it, but I think we would definitely have to revamp it. But we stole the idea from the St. Paul Saints. They did a cat video festival, and they had like 10,000 people come out. So we looked at that and said, hey, why can't we have 10,000 people come out for a pet video festival? And we asked people to, submit their funny pet videos, and we tried to pull clips off of YouTube. And, unfortunately, it just didn't really catch traction despite, various advertising efforts. So I don't think we're going to do that event anytime soon, I'll say. But, I don't think it would be worth giving up on altogether. Like there'll probably be lessons learned from the previous event that maybe we can, implement in a future event or take a different spin on it.
Hey, but you're on the right track going off the St. Paul Saints with anything promotion-wise.
Right.
I know their former GM or president or whatever. He was my boss at Sabre when I interned there, and it was one of the he told me of some of the just wildest promotions that just went nuts and did crazy. But I wanted to go back to whenever you got to Vermont. How did you get to Vermont, and what was your experience like there? I know they play in one of the most historic ballparks in all of baseball, not just minor league baseball.
Yep, it's the oldest ballpark in professional sports. It was 108 years old. It might even be older than that now. That's a really funny story. I'll try to keep it as short as I can. So, and again, a shout out to just the management at the Crush, because they were so willing to have me pursue my goals even while being an employee with the Crush. So back in February of 2015, and again, I'll try to be as short as I can with the story. Back in February in 2015, I was, kind of relatively new to LinkedIn, the social media platform, and just kind of getting my name out there a little bit, doing it for college and, trying to just, update my profile as often as I can. And I certainly had the Crush stuff on there. And at the time it was the general manager. So obviously that looked a little nicer as a title. And one day I got a notification that Joe Dowd, general manager from the Vermont Lake Monsters, viewed your profile. And you get those notifications all the time, people across the country looking at your profile. And I didn't really think much of it. So I looked at his profile too. And I said, cool, another GM, he's at the minor league level. I'm at the summer collegiate level. That's awesome. And I thought nothing of it. And then like a few hours later, he looked at my profile again. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a little weird, but whatever. And I decided, you know what, I'll add this back. It'd be good to have a connection like that. So I added him, he accepted right away. And then he looked at my profile again. I'm like, okay, this is getting a little weird. The guy's kind of stalking me a little bit, like not really sure what's going on. And then this was like a Monday or Tuesday in February. And then throughout the week, like continually, this guy is looking at my profile. And I just stopped at that point. Like, he's got a man crush. I don't know what's going on here. He's just continuing to stalk my profile. And then later on that week, a guy by the name of Kyle Bostwick, who's the vice president of the Lake Monsters, looked at my profile. So now my ears are perked. I'm a little curious. Like something's amiss. Like there's something going on here. And so this is maybe Thursday that Kyle looks at my profile. Friday rolls around. I'm laying in bed and just scrolling through LinkedIn. Another notification from Joe Dowd, probably the 14th one of the week. And then all of a sudden I get a call on my phone from a Vermont number. So I'm like, this is what is this? So I pick it up and it's Joe Dowd on the other line from the Lake Monsters. And he's like, hey, Zach, Joe Dowd from the Vermont Lake Monsters calling, obviously, been stalking your profile a little bit, made a little joke of it. But, wanted to let you know we have a job opening here. And honestly, I just was typing in a few keywords into LinkedIn. You hit a couple, keywords that matched up with the position. And I wanted to see if you'd be interested in exploring it. And, I'll be completely honest right away off the bat. I just said, hey, Joe, I'm good. Thanks for thinking of me, though. I'm pretty happy where I'm at. And he said, well, you sold me a little bit on it and, told me about the benefits and the 401k options and whatnot. And I said, listen, if you want, send me an email. I'm more than happy to look at it, but I'm good. And not 15 minutes later, I got a very detailed email from Joe. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, wow, this is a big boy salary. This is a big boy job. Like I probably should actually consider this. And I'll admit at the time I was pretty closed-minded. Like I was very much of the mindset that I'm going to work for the Crush and I'm going to go work for the Mets or I'm going to go work for the Red Sox. And I had no consideration for the minor league level. I was very much like, go to the NFL, go to the MLB, and that's what you're going to do for the next 30, 40 years. It's a very closed-minded way to think, certainly. So after looking at it, and I called my parents and asked what they thought, and they said, at least go through the process of talking with them. So I set up an interview with Joe, went really well. And then at that point, we did like a 45-minute phone interview with Joe. I kind of assumed that since he had recruited me that I just had the job. But then as we got off that call, he let me know like, hey, we're going to do a second interview. And this time it'll be with Kyle, who's the vice president. And I was a little like dismayed. I was like, oh, I thought I had it in the bag. Now I really want the job. Like now I'm into it. Now I've done all the research and I'm really excited. So I did the interview with Kyle on Friday, and that interview was a little bit tougher. They asked me some questions I wasn't prepared for, but it still went well. So that we did that interview in the morning, and he told me he was going to let me know by 5 o'clock that day. 5 o'clock rolls around, didn't hear from him. So I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I got it. Now I'm like really upset with myself, thinking like, what did I do wrong? And then not 30, 45 minutes later, I get a call from Joe offering me the job. So it was just a really crazy set of circumstances that really began on a Monday and ended on a Friday that, I was pretty committed to working my second season with the Crush, and the Lake Monsters came along, recruited me out of thin air. And, I had worked 2 really fun, successful seasons with that team out in the New York Penn League. So I have no regrets about that experience. It was a great experience, great team over there, and they're still doing great things.
And before I move on to how you got to Lehigh Valley, I know that there's been, reports from Sports Illustrated, big article about, kind of the struggles of minor league baseball, and Major League Baseball has been considering cutting some of those lower level teams, New York Penn League teams, Pioneer League teams. What do you make of that? And just how important is that small level of minor league baseball to the communities that they're in?
Yeah, I can't really speak much to the contraction just because I don't know enough about like how legitimate these reports are and what's going on behind the scenes. I can't speak much to that, but what I can speak to certainly is how important each baseball is to these small communities. And you look at the growth of the game and how the NBA is a great example. It's an international game. It's just as popular in China as it is in America. And how do you get to that point? And it really starts at a grassroots effort in these smaller communities with, sure, is the Vermont Lake Monsters bringing in 400,000 people through the gates per year? No, of course not. But it's a smaller state too. If you look at, population, to stadium ratio, they're one of the more successful teams in the country because the whole state of Vermont only has about 600,000 people in it, and they annually bring in about 80, 90,000 fans. So they are really successful given the size of the state. And kind of going back to what I said before, it's a grassroots effort, and it takes a country to really make it grow. And if you start cutting that out, naturally there's going to be decreases in the interest level at smaller communities. So, I think that minor league baseball, it's an industry that I've really fallen in love with, and I plan to stay in for a very long time. And, it is a sad thought to think that we could lose teams, but again, I'm not here to speculate. So, if anything, I would hope that we'd see more teams, more than 160 one day. I think that there's all these stadiums that are built, all these awesome logos, and it really means a lot to the community.
And
let me ask a question too. You're talking about teams and things like that. Now, for Zach, you've been married about 4 years, I think, and you have a young child. So how does the business of minor league baseball, being in his front office, and what you do mesh with a family life right now? What are your challenges, if any?
Yeah, I mean, right now the challenge is being home too much, I would say, which is very much the opposite during the baseball season, because we're hardly home at all during a homestand. Right now, my wife and I are very excited for my daughter to go back to daycare with the Lehigh Valley moving into the yellow phase. She's been home with us for the last 3 months, and it's been a lot trying to balance both of our jobs from home. But it's during the actual baseball season, there's times where we work 90, 100-hour weeks, and that means I don't get to see my daughter except for a quick kiss in the morning, as I wake up and she's heading off to daycare. My wife's heading off to work, because that's really the only time I'll get with her, because I'll get home sometimes at midnight and everyone's fast asleep. And then I'll wake up at, 8 the next morning and go work another 12, 14-hour shift because we have a game that night. So it's not easy. And, I tell people that, if you want to work in this industry, you have to really be open-minded to the fact that you're going to dedicate a whole part of your life, a whole part of your summer really, to working, and you're going to lose some of that personal life and summer vacations, and you're going to miss things. You're going to miss graduations. You're going to miss weddings. And that's not easy to tell someone that sees sports as an outlier to be like, hey, I want to work in sports. I want to work in sports. I want to work in sports. And then when they, when you really truly go through it for the first time, it's really an eye-opening experience. I remember my first summer in Vermont, albeit only 38 games, I came home exhausted, after working a 6-game homestand. And, that was only 38 games. Now working at the Ironpigs, we have 70 home games plus special events throughout the year. There's, weeks where, again, I just simply don't see my family, even though we're in the same house.
So how did you get to the Ironpigs you went from low A short season to AAA, just like that, no stops between, in single A or double A. How did you impress the Ironpigs to where they took you on, after just being in that, in collegiate baseball and then, in low A short season?
Yeah. I think, part of it's, it's certainly the experience. Anytime we find someone that's from the industry, that's always a benefit. But there's also benefits to hiring people from outside the industry because they bring a different perspective. For me personally, I had networked with the person whose position I actually took at the Ironpigs. We had like a very brief 20-minute phone conversation earlier in the year, just exchanging ideas and, trying to just pick his brain a little bit and, taking some ideas from us as well. And what it came down to is there was some point in September of 2016 in the fall, I went on the Ironpigs front office directory to look up the person that I had connected with, and I saw that his position was vacant. So I did a little bit of digging on LinkedIn and saw that he had taken another position outside of the organization. So I said, while the Ironpigs are the cream of the crop when it comes to minor league baseball, we had it at the Lake Monsters front office. We had a whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, we had a list of maybe 8 to 10 teams of, hey, here's good teams to steal ideas from. And the Ironpigs were number one on that list. So I've always, admired the Ironpigs efforts and, certainly tried to model a lot of the Lake Monsters promotional efforts off of what the Ironpigs were doing. So when the opportunity came up, I reached out to Kurt Landis, who's the team president on LinkedIn. I shot him a message, and he kind of directed me in the right way to go. And I did an interview with Lindsay Knupp, who was the vice president here for about 12 years. And, we had one phone interview, about 40 minutes. And by the end of the week, I had gotten the job offer. So, it was a hard decision to leave the Lake Monsters. But at the end of the day, I looked at it as a step up in my career and an opportunity to work for a full season team, which, for me, I do like the grind of the season. So more games was always a plus, but also just a new challenge too. I was ready for. So, and it wasn't far from home either. So staying on the East Coast was important. I'm originally from New York. So, I'm still able to get home to family in Albany, on a hop, skip, and a jump on the highway. I've been with the Ironpigs since October of 16, and it's been a truly great experience. Ever since I've had a lot of ideas that have been implemented. I've had my voice heard, and it's been great.
Well, we're going to have to get you back next year to do a first pitch, Zach, when we play. Come on up and do that, okay?
Absolutely.
What we try to do too is bring back alumni. We had a good idea and a plan this year, and you were part of that discussion earlier, is how to get you guys back, do a first pitch, and being so close in a sense. So, but that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, I guess I haven't really mentioned much of it. I originally started off in a promotions role with the Lake Monsters and even a promotions role with the Ironpigs, and have only recently, within the last 9 months or so, switched to a sales role. So I've kind of gotten a little bit, best of both worlds to kind of see how it operates more on the business end as opposed to the fun end. I think a lot of people when we get internship applications, most people want to do marketing and promotions, but I don't think a lot of people know what marketing and promotions actually means. They just see it as something that could be fun. So I think having gone through that and seeing that, my recommendation to people coming up in the industry would be, sales is a really good, way to get your foot in the door. And it's a really good opportunity to kind of try a little bit of everything. And promotions is certainly fun, but to get a good understanding of everything, I think you need a little bit of both.
And what is your role, Director of Corporate Partnerships? What does that entail, and how do you get, these companies to buy into the idea of AAA baseball?
Yeah, my role, day to day, consists of in the off season. We're busy in meetings, making cold calls, gaining leads, networking, trying to engage, companies in a conversation about, being a community partner. So that might mean having their logo on a billboard in the outfield. That might mean having their logo on a giveaway item, like a bobblehead that we give out to fans on a particular game night. That might mean a variation of things. We have social media inventory. We have video board inventory. So it's really just having, a conversation more than anything else, not really trying to sell something on the spot with a company, and really see what their needs are and what they're doing in the area, what's important to them. And then from there, identifying and suggesting some things that we have to offer that might kind of fall in line with what their goals are. So again, it's not as much sales as it is listening and having a conversation. And, once we can kind of identify, hey, you mentioned that it's really important for you to get in front of, military and veterans. Well, here are some military and veteran programs that we offer. And then from there, usually things kind of come together.
And I had one more question before we finish up. Have you been watching the KBO, and do you have a team?
I've watched less than I would have liked to. I think simply just because of the time of the day that it's on. I've watched maybe 3 or 4 games. So it would be hard for me to say I have a team. I know the Dinos are very, very good. So I've been kind of following along as a front runner, admittedly, just because of how successful they are. But I wouldn't consider myself a fan by any means.
All right. Well,
I'm a fan of all baseball, and I can roll with that. But thank you, Zach.
Yeah. No, thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. That'll wrap up the second edition of the CrushCast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at CrushBall and tune in for our next podcast next week.